Hey, everybody. I am so excited. We have another Meet the Presenter video. Welcome, Viv Augustine, who will be a new presenter for the Oran More Holistic Center coming up here soon in June of 2021. Hi, Viv.
Hello, Miss Amy. How are you?
I'm doing quite well, thanks. And even better because we get to have a little chat today. How fun is this?
Yes.
Well, we have recently reconnected because I saw some of the wonderful things that you are doing here. Well, not here, but that you are doing now. And
Here on the earthly plane.
here on the planet, you're doing things. Um, when we last spoke about 5 years ago, you were getting ready to go into college to do a master's, and you were doing a lot of art, and you're an amazing artist. And didn't you go into art therapy?
Yes, I did. So I actually got my master's in counseling psychology with an emphasis on expressive arts. So that means that I was trained as a counseling psychologist, as a marriage and family therapist, but the lens that I do it through is very expressive arts. So we combine like drama therapy with talk therapy, with visual stuff, with metaphorical language, with any kind of thing that you use to express yourself. My job as an art therapist is to kind of reach into how do you express yourself? How do you feel comfortable? What are you drawn to? And help leverage that in order to allow you to tap into your own innate healing capacities and to also just investigate parts of our story that we often forget or we brush to the side because of, different narratives and beliefs around what is important about our story. So my job is to kind of get in there and be like, oh, well, are we missing this? And can we use this? And just to support ourselves in all the beautiful ways that we naturally do that sometimes we forget because life is wild and we get busy.
Isn't it wild? Well, and I was particularly just tickled to see that you are bringing in different healing modalities. We'd had lots of conversations about those things 5 years ago, and that you also do some astrology. You were telling me earlier today that you've been doing some sound healing. So can you tell us more about that part of the journey?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you are definitely one of the many beautiful holistic healers I got to come into contact with before going into the more Western approach of psychology. And so with that, I was really fortunate to have a lot of mentors like you who I had beautiful experiences healing with outside of the realm of traditional psychotherapy. And so I really went in also wanting to combine those realms. So I am like Reiki attuned. I'm doing a sound healing program right now. And then on top of all of that, the kind of root of all this for me is in what's called curanderismo. And that is a more Mesoamerican traditional healing philosophy. So I apprenticed with a curandera, and I actually call myself a Quueranderex, which we can get into in a second. But so I basically have combined so many of these philosophies that I've learned, as well as my apprenticeship with this traditional medicine woman, doing also astrology. I love astrology as kind of a doorway into how we work and why we want what we want and kind of the way that we move. So I've combined all these into like a fun sauce, and that's what you get with me. So
Well, let's take that word apart just a little bit. You said something I've never heard, Mesoamerican, and
yeah,
then you said Quueranderex or quirendismo. So maybe even spell it so people know what we're saying, because it's the strong accent there to say it well.
So in lots of Latin American cultures, the healer I studied with is from Mexico. And I am also Mexican. So this was kind of a part of me embracing my cultural heritage and my roots as a healer. So she's called a curandera, which comes from the Spanish word curar, like to cure. And so it's really like a medicine person, like a medicine person you go to, kind of like a soul doctor. And they can combine things like herbs and meditation, and what a lot of the root of it is, which I love, is called a plática, which is just in Spanish is just to platicar, is just to have a conversation. But in this tradition of curanderismo, the plática is so important because you're having a heart-to-heart conversation with somebody who's really listening with their intuition, who is listening with their own intuitive perspective, and is going to like hold space for you in that process, and then reflect back to you, and then take you through perhaps a guided meditation, who might prescribe you herbs, who might do other like shamanic kind of journey work with you. So it depends. Every curandera has like their own kind of practice, their own specialty. So what else I really loved about the tradition is you're meant to find your own version of it that you offer people, your own unique kind of powers. So with that, when I was studying with my maestra, which is Spanish for teacher, with my maestra, I'm a queer person, and I was kind of like, oh, you know, part of my medicine on this journey is to queer things, you know, to make them mine, to make them even odd at times, but for them to be authentic. And in a lot of social justice circles, you can find the word queering, like as a verb, like to queer something, is to make it not of the norm and to make it more authentic for you. And it kind of is this beautiful umbrella term of like, it's what you make it and you get to choose, versus what often we're told and given to as we're supposed to be like this, you're supposed to have this kind of life and do this kind of thing. So I kind of created this word Quueranderex to say, like, I really love, what lights me up is honoring people in their uniqueness and allowing them to be that, and kind of guiding them to like, what is your authenticity and how can you come into greater harmony in your life? That is a big thing for me, is like, how can I be more harmonious with myself and others? Because that's also a part of the journey, is being harmonious with your environment as well as your truth. And that can be a tricky point. That can be actually pretty hard to do, right?
Well, especially, and then we'll get into the classes that we're going to have you facilitate for us to begin with here in June. But yeah, especially when how you are in the world is something that is very judged.
Yes.
And so one of my great joys, and something that's really lighting me up right now, is having the opportunity to be part of a presence in Lincoln, Nebraska's first ever Star City Pride Parade. And so as such, things with inclusivity of our LGBTQ plus population, and really coming to get some of the languaging that's happening these days. I mean, some friends and I were just, discussing like, wow, these pronouns that people are putting at the end of their emails are, she, her, hers, and he, him, his, and they, whatever, they, them. And so anyway, we're going to do pronouns 101, and Viv is going to lead us in that class and help us understand more about what that's about and how to use it, and if it's for us to use it. So I love that, like, what works. And so we won't go deep into that, but I'm excited that you'll do that with us. And then we're going to have a segment of something we've done in different ways called Conscious Conversations. And it's what is LGBTQ plus?
Yeah. And these are great questions, right? Because if we don't know, if we are some folks who have felt like more supported by the mainstream, or have just been able to, I don't want to say blend in, but just go with the flow, right? And haven't had to be like called out and stuff like that. And I mean, called out in a way of like, oh, you're other, right? If you follow a certain path that's more common, then it can be like, wait, what is this stuff? And like, why is it important? And I think it's really key to have these conversations, because we all are here to be in harmony with one another, like I said. And, for me, I am so familiar with how choosing a name, how choosing words that describe you is really, really healing. And then actually, once you have experienced that process, that itself is healing, when others affirm you and you're able to be held by your community. So I know y'all are trying to do so much healing work and really bring the community in. So this is perfect, just another way for everybody to just kind of like get on board and realize we don't have to always understand exactly each other, but we can still respect one another, right? And we can still show support through education, through conscious conversation like you guys are having.
So, well, I loved you saying that the word queer as in queering. That's so fun because years and years ago, I found a bumper sticker that I felt like was actually the first time I'd ever found one that I would put on a car and commit to. And it said, it's still not weird enough for me. So I'm all about queering things. That's fabulous. And let's just leave this conversation with an invitation for the ongoing conversation. The piece about the word queer, in case you're wondering why we are having so much fun with that word, there was a time when people would use that as a slap in the face. Don't be queer. In other words, don't be odd. Don't be unusual. Don't stand out. In other words, don't be you, which is really, really sad to me to say that, but that's how it's been used. And then there was a point at which it was embraced.
Right.
And you know, what we're queer, I think is something we've all heard before, right? Well, maybe not all, and that's why we're doing this, is that some people just really took great joy in embracing the term and letting it describe them because they just wanted to be them.
Right. And that's the beauty of this work too, is I understand that, like, I find a lot of empowerment in that word. I think it's so beautiful, but there may be like LGBT elders who don't feel that way about that word. And I honor them and I honor their process as well. So those are things that those kind of complexities that are hard to grasp, like we'll totally chat about in our conscious conversation. So I hope people, if they're feeling overwhelmed or just like, what is any of this, that they come join us so they can see that it's, it's not so black and white, and that's okay. And we're all here just to have like respectful conversation, to honor one another, and to do our best to just understand and make space for each person's experience.
Well, and as I keep saying, we'll end with this, but then one more thing pops up. And also, what is an ally?
Oh, yes. We'll talk about that.
As I set out to ask people to volunteer to walk in the Pride Parade, it had not even occurred to me that anyone might have the idea of like, well, if I were to do that, would people think I was gay? I was like, oh, wow, that's a wonderful thing to address, because this is all about support and having fun and celebrating diversity. And honestly, well, maybe I shouldn't say that, but do we care?
For some people, like, that's what we have to honor, right? Is like, just in the way sometimes like gay folks don't want to be mistaken for straight folks don't want to be mistaken for gay. It does have, it comes from a little bit of a different root, but that's why we can all get down with needing to be honored. We can all get down with wanting to be seen as our true selves. And so that's why I think is the great doorway for this conversation. But of course, I'm a queer person, so I'm like used to being mistaken, or I'm used to being misrepresented. So I'm like, oh, like, what does it matter? But for, somebody else to be like, oh, I don't want somebody to think I'm something I'm not. I'm like, oh, well, isn't that a lovely doorway for you to understand somebody else's experience as well?
Exactly. That's what came about for me. And I caught myself starting to say, who cares? But that's the point, is that people do care. And it is about honoring where people are.
Right. That's such a great point. Like, what is an ally? So we'll definitely talk about what is an ally, how can you be an ally, right? And the beauty of being an ally, the fun of it, and the importance of allies in the LGBTQ plus community as well, because we need everybody on board in the way that they can.
All right. Well, I can't wait to have these events with you. Folks, please check the Oran More website. That's oranmorcenter.org, ORANMOR center.org, and check out our upcoming events, classes, all the things that we have there. And hopefully there will be something for you. And if it's soon, you can find this information. So thank you so much for spending time with me. It's just a delight to be with you.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I can't wait for all of our upcoming conscious conversations and beyond. And all the gifts that this connection is bringing.
All right. Bye-bye. Have a good one.